Welcome to Women Mastering Midlife, where we dive deep into the rich complexities of womanhood in our middle years. I'm your host, Victoria Bird, a pharmacist, certified women's health coach, and your guide on this transformative journey. Whether you're navigating perimenopause, thriving in menopause, or mastering midlife's many transitions, this is your weekly dose of expert guidance, compassionate support, and a judgment-free space to explore it all. Together, we will rewrite the narrative around this remarkable stage from being something to dread into a beautiful transition. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. We are going to be digging into alcohol. And some of you might be thinking, oh, that's exciting. That's fun. But you might not be excited about what I have to say. Women in midlife, we need to talk about our relationship with alcohol. So here we go. Why not? So with the holiday season upon us, it is time where cocktails are everywhere. You're going to, from like Halloween parties all the way through New Year's, right? You're having, wicked brews and holiday punches and fall ciders. And then you're having Thanksgiving and the wine and the cocktails at Thanksgiving. And sometimes we need a little bit of alcohol to take the edge off of seeing family. Sometimes we need it just because the holidays feel like the stress levels just get amped. Then you've got Christmas, Hanukkah, all the things. And then you have New Year's Eve. And so then you hit New Year's Day and your liver is exhausted. You haven't slept very well in the last few weeks. And you're like, okay, that's it. Dry January. I'm done. Well, what if we change the narrative? What if you understood what alcohol does to your brain, what it does to your sleep, what it does to you in midlife, and decide that this year you're not going to use alcohol as that crutch, as taking the edge off, as a way of celebrating. This isn't a call for sobriety, although I think many of us could benefit from just going dry completely. But it is a conversation that needs to be had because I don't think that we are all very well aware of the effects, the ramifications of drinking. So today we're going to talk about the complex relationship between alcohol and menopause. Two bad words. Trying to think of a way to put those together other than thinking like, those are two 4-letter words right there. Alcohol, especially when it comes to midlife and menopause. So let's talk about some common reasons women increase alcohol consumption. Let's just talk about midlife in general, but we'll also bring in the holidays. I've already also talked about, the need around your family's in town. Maybe you're getting to hang out with your sisters or your brothers or your mother or your in-laws or cousins. And there's some toxic behaviors in the family that you really just don't want to deal with. And so you cope with drinking alcohol. But let's also talk about, we use it as a way of numbing life. Midlife is hard. We're stressed with work and with money and with relationship difficulties. Some of us might be going through divorce. Some of us might be on the verge, or some of us might be single and coping with that around the holidays. Our parents are not getting any younger. Some of us have parents that are aging at a rapid pace and we're watching them decline and it feels like time is slipping through our hands. There's also troubles and worries. I don't know how many nights I have stayed up worried about my kids and their mental or physical well-being in one aspect or another. Then there's the social component of alcohol. I don't know if it's just that it's our generation. I remember being a mom 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where wine time was the thing, right? You even had graphic t-shirts for wine time, or, mommy needs her magic juice, or mommy needs a glass of wine. And it was almost celebrated with having small children, like toddlers are crazy. Pour yourself a glass of wine, get them in the bath, and then as they go to bed, you can drink that wine that's been breathing. And it just felt so normalized to drink when they were younger. And maybe this is still the case. I don't have small children anymore. I have teenagers, and so that's a whole different level of parenting. But maybe that's something you see in friends of yours that have toddlers. It's just there's so much mental stimulation, emotional stimulation every day, mixed on top of horrible sleeping patterns, exhaustion, and alcohol seems to be the answer that we sought. And I feel like now there is more of a movement to not drinking. There's great craft non-alcoholic beers. There's mocktails. Restaurants and bars are now celebrating having, options for not drinking. And that wasn't the case. When I was younger, especially in college, I remember, we would take turns being the sober person that would go out to bars. And I remember going into a bar in downtown St. Louis in pharmacy school, and it was my turn to be designated driver. And it was a $10 cover and for all you could drink. And I said, well, if I'm the designated driver, do you have a different color band for me? Do I still have to pay this $10 cover? And they told me, yes, I did. And I thought that was pretty surprising because you would think that they would promote not drinking or at least give you a different color band and maybe you get unlimited Coke products or water or whatever. But they were promoting that drinking mentality. And that was a college, it wasn't a college town per se, but where we were, there were a lot of bars around the colleges in downtown St. Louis. So it was definitely feeling like alcohol was just part of life. And so now I feel like the younger generations are coming out with opportunities and ways to not drink. So maybe this is a generational thing and we'll see this shift. But while you think menopause might give you reason to drink, right? You're not sleeping, so you think you'll have a glass of wine, it'll take the edge off the day, it'll help you fall asleep. Or you're stressed and your resilience to stress is down, or just the agonizing symptoms of menopause are getting at you. This is not the time to drink. Alcohol is going to impact your body totally differently in midlife. And so we really need to think about what it's going to do to us. So when we talk about the impact of alcohol on menopausal symptoms, the first thing we need to talk about is the vasomotor symptoms of hot flashes and night sweats. So if you are suffering from night sweats, especially hot flashes during the day, alcohol will affect your body's thermoregulatory zone. So what that does is it increases your body temperature when you already have your thermoregulation completely thrown off in menopause. And so research has found that alcohol actually increases your frequency of vasomotor symptoms. So I can tell you from personal experience, I've been on an estradiol patch that I change twice weekly for a year now, and I take micronized progesterone every night. And if I drink alcohol, regardless of my hormone therapy, I'm having a hot flash. I'm having a night sweat. Like that is given. I will wake up soaking wet. I will be kicking sheets off again. And then it's like, well, how bad would it be if I wasn't on a hormone therapy? But also, that just goes to show you that just because you have hormones on board, it doesn't mean that you're just going to have this perfect, I can do whatever I want, eat whatever I want, drink whatever I want life because hormones are back in action. That's not the case. Sleep is so vital in perimenopause and menopause. Getting enough sleep is like, it should be its own Olympic sport. I don't know a woman in midlife who hasn't had trouble sleeping. And when you add in alcohol, you might believe that this is going to actually help you fall asleep. But in reality, it actually increases sleep latency. So the sleep architecture, so the way your night will lay out for sleep, latency is how long you lay in bed without being able to fall asleep. So alcohol, the studies done on alcohol in midlife women actually shows an increase in latency, which is not good. You want to be able to fall asleep within 5 to 10, 15 minutes of laying down. You're also decreasing your REM sleep, your rapid eye movement sleep. And that is so important for your brain, removing toxins and the brain dumping and the regeneration of cells. You also see an initial increase in your deep sleep, but then it's followed by more light sleep later in the night. So it's totally shifting. That's why it's changing your sleep architecture. So you're not only changing the architecture of your sleep by decreasing your REM and increasing your latency, but you're also altering when you go into deep sleep and when you're going into more light sleep. So you don't want to have too much light sleep late in your sleep cycle because that's going to affect your overall recovery through the night. And so if you're having a drink within 3 hours before bed, plan on your sleep being destroyed, ladies. There's some statistics on alcohol that I found that were quite interesting when it comes to the impact on sleep. The Sleep Foundation said that more than one drink will disrupt your sleep in 39.2% of cases. And one drink will reduce your sleep quality by 24%. Less than one drink disrupts sleep by quality of 9.3%. So if you have a half of a cocktail or half a beer, you're still going to affect your sleep. But 24% of my sleep quality is decreased by having a glass of wine. I'm beginning to rethink whether or not I really want to drink it. And there are times, I will say, my whole mindset on alcohol has shifted. So if we're at a party or a function and cocktails are being served, especially, I will be honest, I am an extroverted introvert, if that makes sense. I can be loud and fun and very chatty if I'm in a small setting of people I know. When I'm in a mixed setting or I'm in a professional setting that I'm not comfortable in yet, or if I'm at a work function for my husband or a charity function for the community, I might want an alcoholic beverage just to kind of calm my mind, stop the brain swirling, because I do get anxious around other people. I have no problem talking to a camera on Instagram that publicly could go across the whole world if you think about it. But in a setting of a party or a function, I am very reserved and nervous about it. So I might think to myself, okay, so I'm going to this function. I don't know anybody there, or it's going to be people I need to talk to. I can't obviously become fall down intoxicated, which would be probably at this point 2 drinks. But having a cocktail to settle in, celebrate something, or just calm my mind, that will be worth my night of poor sleep. And that's kind of the scale. Like I'm thinking of Lady Justice, right? And you got a bottle of wine in one hand and you've got a good night's sleep in the other. And you're trying to scale the weight of like, which one is heavier today? For me, it's also whiskey. To be honest, I've grown very fond of the taste of whiskey. So there are times when I will enjoy that nightcap, knowing my sleep will be trash. So this isn't a drive to be sober conversation. I'm not going to, say all of you need to stop drinking forever. But understand that you're affecting your sleep. And it is also a toxin. So you are affecting your brain. So let's talk about some cognitive function issues. There are some risks involved in drinking alcohol on our cognition. So there's brain communication pathways that are interfered with when alcohol is at play. So, you've seen people drink too much, they have slurred speech, they have trouble coming up with words, they may be nonsensical. Well, we already have brain fog. I have like word freeze so often. Today, I was volunteering at the kids' school and I was thinking there was a teacher's aide that had walked in and I could not for the life of me remember her name. I just got it. It literally just popped in my head. But I was thinking, I said, she came and grabbed kindergartens. And I just could not think of her name. It was killing me. So brain fog, especially in perimenopause, is one of the most horrible symptoms of hormone fluctuations. They say that it calms down in menopause, and I've heard women say that the brain fog does kind of go away in menopause. It is a lot of the fluctuations, like the peaks and troughs of estrogen. It's just the hormonal roller coaster. Our brains, and I'm actually listening to this book right now called Upgrade, and it talks about how there are complete like resurfacing of our brains that happen. And perimenopause is one of those times when our brain landscape is being altered. And, there's puberty is one, pregnancy is one, postpartum is one, and, the menopausal transition into menopause. Those are a couple other ones. And it's a fascinating book, but I was thinking about how, if we're already dealing with this landscape change of our brain, and we already can't think of a word all the time, or why you walked into a room to find, like, where are your keys? Can't find I have air tags on my keys now. Why did you walk into a room? I used to be the one in the house, like, so on top of birthdays. Like, if I can't think of any of those things and alcohol interferes with my brain communication pathways, it just sounds like a recipe for disaster. There's also been a study that I read that says that there's potential changes in neuron size when alcohol is consumed. So if you're thinking about this is the time of your life that your brain is changing away from protect your children, there's the whole protect the offspring at any cost, protective mother thing that starts to take a little bit of a step back in our brains, and it resurfaces into, decreasing multitasking, and which would be amazing, and, emotional changes, mental clarity around our lives and what we want to do with ourselves and our hobbies and loves and passions, all those things. Drinking alcohol may affect that. Do you feel lost in this midlife transition? Are you a stranger in your own body and don't have the time or energy to sift through all the information regarding perimenopause and menopause? The Women Mastering Midlife community is your solution. Get instant, on-demand access to expert guidance from a certified women's health coach and pharmacist, a judgment-free space to share your journey, research-backed resources and vetted recommendations, simple strategies for nutrition, sleep, stress, fitness, and lifestyle changes, twice monthly opportunities for group coaching, and direct support when you need it most. Stop wasting time and money on miracle solutions. Join a community of women who get it. Visit womenmasteringmidlifecommunity.com to start thriving in your next chapter. Together, we will age boldly. There's also some long-term risks, which are the increased risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. That's another thing I will also say. I feel like I'm like kind of beating a dead horse a little bit on the brain fog thing, but before I knew I was in perimenopause, I thought I was in early dementia. Like, I thought I had early onset Alzheimer's. I was thinking of Meredith Grey and Grey's Anatomy, and then I was thinking of my family history of Alzheimer's and dementia. And I remember being in a car on a weekend, and Greg was driving, and I said to him, like, I'm honestly thinking that maybe I need a dementia test because I have never felt so out of my mind before. Like, I can't remember anything. I can't put a sentence together. I'm smarter than this. Is my brain going to mush? Am I going to forget who I am next week? So if I'm already feeling that way, and I know that this will pass once my hormones kind of settle down, I really don't want to increase the risk of actually developing dementia or Alzheimer's. So the toxins from alcohol have been linked to an increased risk in dementia and Alzheimer's. So take that as you will. I mean, we are old enough women to make our own choices. And to some people, that's a deal breaker. That's enough right there. We also there's mental health issues. Women are at an increased risk of depression and anxiety. Up to like 40% of women going through the menopausal transition will experience anxiety or depression, or symptoms of depression. And if alcohol is a depressant and you're already having issues with your mental health, take a step back from the alcohol. Now we're going to talk about breast cancer. Okay, ladies. So we've talked about sleep disturbances and how it affects the symptoms and exacerbates the symptoms of menopause. But there are some real health risks that have been associated with alcohol that we need to talk about. So there was a study that was done that said that women who drink alcohol are actually at a higher risk of developing breast cancer than women on hormone therapy. So when we're talking about hormone therapy and the safety of estrogen, you're actually more likely to develop a breast cancer and receive a breast cancer diagnosis if you're drinking alcoholic beverages than if you're on estrogen therapy. Women who drink 3 alcoholic drinks per week have a 15% higher risk of breast cancer. And the risk increases by another 10% for each additional daily drink. Those are some pretty heavy stats, ladies. There was a European study I read that showed that 66% of alcohol-attributable cancers in women were breast cancers. So when they were able to link a cancer back to alcohol consumption, 66% of the time it was breast cancer. And over half of these cases were not due to heavy drinking. So those are staggering statistics. About 1/3 of new cases yearly are due to drinking up to 2 small glasses of wine per day. So there's this whole, drinking red wine is good for your heart. I'm still looking for the data on that one. I'm still looking for that. Sometimes I feel like if you want research to tell you something specific, just look hard enough and long enough and you'll find it. But based on global data of prevalence of alcohol consumption and the incidence rate of breast cancer, an estimated 144,000 new cases of breast cancer and 38,000 cases of breast cancer that cause deaths annually are accounted for by alcohol consumption. That's 8.6% of all incidents of breast cancers and 7.3% of all mortalities due to breast cancer. So now that I've scared you and I've told you all the horrible things, let's make some informed choices. We're over the age of 21. Most of us are in our 40s and 50s, maybe late 30s who are listening to this. And so you can make an informed choice on your alcohol. So now that I've given you the statistics, I've given you some things to think about. Obviously, the concept is the best alcohol is no alcohol, right? Like we're going to say no alcohol is better than any. But if you're going to choose to drink, there are some considerations for better options. So red wine does contain resveratrol, which has been shown to help cellular health, and it may also decrease blood pressure. Now, I'm not saying that this doesn't go back to 1/3 of new cases of breast cancer yearly are due to drinking up to 2 small glasses of wine per day. Pick your poison. It might decrease your blood pressure. If you're going to drink, red wine is a better option. Champagne is another better option. If you're not going to abstain from alcohol, red wine and champagne in moderation. Champagne is one of the lower calorie alcoholic beverages. The sugar content is low, which is better for you. So if you're going to drink, have some champagne. So if you're looking for an excuse or a reason to head to the store and buy yourself a bottle of Veuve, there you go. But I spoke earlier in the beginning of the show about alternatives to alcohol, and non-alcoholic beers have come a long way. My great-grandmother spent time in a nursing home when I was a teenager, and I remember going to visit her and my grandmother bringing her O'Doul's. Like that was the only option. And my mom was like, just let her have a regular beer at this point. She was in her 80s, and the O'Doul's tasted like, I don't know, fizzy yellow water, yeasty water. It was just not pleasant. Sorry to knock O'Doul's. But nowadays, there are some non-alcoholic beers out there that are really good. And when we get our Total Wine pickup these days, it's actually, I will fill my cart with, there's one called Best Day that has a Kolsch. Let me make sure. Yeah, so it's Best Day Brewing Company. They make a Kolsch that is delish, not going to lie. Athletic Brewing Company has been winning awards with their non-alcoholic beers. They have seasonal brews all the time. Which one do I like the most? I think it's called Upside Dawn. Yes. That is my favorite from Athletic Brewing Company. Stella Artois Liberté is their alcohol-free Stella. That is delicious. Corona, non-alcoholic, tastes just like a regular Corona. So if I'm doing Taco Tuesdays, I actually get a 6-pack of the non-alcoholic Corona, throw a lime in it. It tastes the same. Like, I'm still going to get the calories from the beer. It's nowhere near the calories of beer with alcohol. But I like the taste of an ice cold beer. So I've really enjoyed those. Those are a couple of my favorites. What else? I've tried non-alcoholic wines. They taste like fermented juice. Like, I have not found one. The only ones that I have found that are decent have a lot of sugar in them. So I don't typically go that route. There are a lot of mocktails out there. And my kids even love when we go to restaurants, they'll get a mocktail off the cocktail menu. And bartenders are coming up with some really crafty mocktails these days. And I've really enjoyed some of them. You have to watch the sugar content if you're trying to not add a lot of refined sugars to your diet. But mocktails have come a long way. I'm still a non-alcoholic beer girl, but mocktails are good. So I have created a mocktail guide with recipes for mocktails, with a list of some non-alcoholic beers and some non-alcoholic spirits. And some of the non-alcoholic spirits are not bad. I think it's Ritual Zero Proof that I've used in substitution of alcohol for cocktails. And they're not bad. So those are some suggestions. I will link my mocktail guide in the show notes. So if you want a guide for holiday festive kind of drinks, I will add it to the show notes. So take a look at that. And, let's think about ways this holiday season that we can just reduce overall alcohol consumption, right? I mean, the mocktails and the mocktails, non-alcoholic beers. I am always a fan of club soda with a lime. Looks like you're having a cocktail if you need something in your hand. But the mental clarity that you arrive at when you're not drinking at parties or celebrations, and the hidden sugars you're not consuming, these are all really important things to take stock of. And I think if journaling how you feel helps you to recognize, in my Aura app, I'm able to add the tag for alcohol. And I notice my sleep is trash when I drink. So that's a reminder of like, hey, I made this choice last night. Wasn't the smartest. My body is suffering. And then that way I can kind of recall the internal feeling. Did I have hot flashes that night? Did I have a night sweat? Did I wake up 4 times in the middle of the night? Those are all things that I keep track of so that I'm mindful of my experiences and whether or not that alcohol added to my day or took away from my day. I also think that, approaching alcohol during the holidays, for some, it's a non-negotiable. It's part of celebration, tradition. Like I said, I'm not here to jump on the everybody must get sober bandwagon. But I also think that this is a good time to start to reflect, like, why do I need that alcohol so bad? Is it that I enjoy the taste of it? Is it that I enjoy adding it to a celebration? Or is it taking the edge off? Is it numbing? Is it helping me to dissociate with the people around me? Then maybe some work on boundaries and how much time you spend with those people, or your own relationship to alcohol is an important thing to start thinking about and reflecting on. If I wanted to stop drinking altogether for a month, if I wanted to do a dry January, how hard would that be for me? And if it's hard, why is it hard? And am I okay with how hard it is, right? Like we also need to think about for our own mental well-being, if I'm struggling with the idea of not drinking alcohol for a month, there a connection with some sort of behavior or addiction to it that I need to deal with. And so maybe this holiday season, you think, okay, I'm only going to have one cocktail at the Christmas Eve party, and I'm going to have a cocktail at the holiday work party, and I'm going to have champagne on New Year's, and that's it. Maybe you make that promise to yourself. Maybe if you are going to drink, you can drink earlier so it doesn't affect your sleep. It's still going to have all those bad side effects that we talked about earlier, but if your sleep is paramount, then maybe drinking wine with Thanksgiving at 1 o'clock versus drinking wine at 7 is going to be easier on your night's sleep. So just being really conscious of what it's doing to your body, how it makes you feel the next day, and like Lady Justice with the blindfold, like is it worth it? When I talk to my coaching clients about alcohol, my job is not to tell you to quit drinking. My job is not to tell you how you should approach alcohol. My job as a coach is to explain all the benefits and the pluses and the minuses of something. So we would talk about what are some benefits to consuming alcohol that you find. Let's talk about some health ramifications. How is it affecting your sleep? And how does all of this make you feel? And if you're like, nope, I'm good, makes me like the pluses outweigh the minuses, then that's the journey that you're taking. I want every woman who listens to a podcast, who comes to me as a coaching client, to feel completely empowered to make a choice for themselves based on the knowledge that I can provide them, the resources I can give them. But only you know your personal circumstance, your health, your family history, and you can make those choices because at the end of the day, it's your intuition. You know your body, you know yourself. You've been with yourself for decades at this point. I'm only here as a resource to provide the information. So I hope that if you are interested in curbing the booze this holiday season, that you find some alternatives. Like I said, club soda with a lime wins every time. Those non-alcoholic beers, if you're a beer drinker, have come so far. Actually, I was watching on Instagram the other day. There was a reel with Jimmy Fallon and Tom Holland. And Tom Holland talked about his struggle with being sober. And when he was sober for a year, he created a non-alcoholic beer, a craft non-alcoholic beer. So there are options popping up everywhere. And I think celebrities normalizing not drinking and discussing the health benefits to not drinking is going to help us in the long run as well. So try the non-alcoholic brews, try the mocktails. Let me know what you think. Check out the guide. I'm going to give it to you in the show notes. It's my holiday gift to you. And we will come back next time and we will dig into some other midlife topics. But let me know. Comment on this podcast episode. Send me a message on Instagram. I want to talk to you about alcohol. How is it affecting you? Did this episode make you realize some things about health and science data that you've decided to cut back a little bit? I'm excited for the new year with you. I'm excited for the last few episodes of our year. And yeah, thanks again for listening. I hope this was informative and helpful, and you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. Thanks so much for joining me today. We will be back next week for another episode of Women Mastering Midlife. Until then, find us on Instagram at Women Mastering Midlife or Miss Victoria Bird, and join us in the Women Mastering Midlife community to continue our discussions. You'll find links to what you've heard here today, as well as ways to connect with us in the show notes below. This podcast is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. Please note the hosts, guests, and experts featured on this podcast are not your personal healthcare providers, life coaches, or advisors. The content should not be considered as professional, personalized medical, psychological, or prescriptive advice. This podcast is not a substitute for consulting your physician, therapist, local pharmacist, or relevant professionals to discuss your specific concerns and situation. The topics discussed should not be used as the sole basis to diagnose or treat any medical condition, make significant life changes, or make important decisions regarding your health otherwise. Women Mastering Midlife is not responsible for any undesired outcomes resulting from actions taken based on the information provided in this podcast. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests only and do not represent any of those other individuals or entities. Always consult with qualified professionals before making significant changes to your health regimen, lifestyle, or medical plans.